morning once again, and welcome to the Haven Financial Group radio show. Again, thanks for listening this morning. Feel free to give us a call. Any of the topics we're discussing today, 612-504-8400, havenfinancialgroup.com, info@havenfinancialgroup.com. Send us an email, whatever your best means of contact. Maybe you're busy today, maybe sometime this week. Kim, for this segment, I did round up Lance Larson, our CPA, who's probably the busiest guy in the office by far, considering it's tax season. Good to have you with us, Lance.
Thanks, Larry.
Lance, it's great to have you, like always, and we'll get you in and get you out here, sir, because I know you're a busy man. We've been talking about, retirement being sort of a family affair, if you will, and we wanted to talk a little bit about executing tax minimization strategies because Larry and I in the last segment talked a little bit about how you certainly do not want to work all your life to be giving too much of your money to the state and to the feds. I think we all get that we are going to pay our fair share. But when we finally do get there to retirement, I think we're looking for ways to minimize the amount of cash that we're paying Uncle Sam. So let's talk a little bit, if we could, about some strategies that you might use for minimizing tax bills. And let's talk about those who are lucky enough to maybe have a pension, those who are drawing, obviously, Social Security, and maybe some of the benefits that you might be pulling from your IRA. So what are some minimizing strategies that you would use in those three different situations?
So, Kim, probably the first thing we look at is what do we have coming in? And I call it forced income. So those who are blessed enough to have that pension, well, once you turn that pension on, you're going to be getting that amount for the rest of your life. So that's one of those forced income items. The same thing for Social Security. When we turn that on, you're going to be getting that every month. So when we have that forced income, that kind of gives us a base of the cash that's coming in, which we use for our taxable income. Then we start looking at what do we need to have in addition to that to help pay the bills. And once we've covered all that, that's when we start looking at really hard at these tax minimization strategies. So most retired couples, they're only going to need somewhere between $100,000 and $120,000 of cash every year to pay for their bills. So if that's being the case, when we look at the taxable income, that comes in under that 12%. So that's when we look at saying, all right, let's take this money out of your IRA account. Let's do something with it. We can either do a conversion to a Roth account. We can pull it out, save it for savings because we know we're going to have a big purchase coming up in the next year or two. Or a lot of variety of different reasons. Hey, we want to pull the money out and do something with the family. Let's go pay for a nice family vacation and everybody get together. Then also we look at it on the flip side is that, hey, if we look at that forced income, we looked at the money that we need to take out for paying our bills. Where does that put us at? Oh, that might put us into that 22 or 24%. Well, maybe we don't want to pull that much money out of the pre-tax accounts. Can we look at possibly pulling it out of a non-qualified account? We could also look at using the Roth accounts there to help supplement. So those are kind of the ideas we kind of look at.
Okay, fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about retirement account withdrawals and how I'm sure that you set up strategies for people so that they're not drawing and paying, at the maximum amount.
Exactly. And that's kind of going back to what I was saying earlier is that we want to see how much do we need to pull out. Mm-hmm. We want to pull out from our taxable sources to fill up that 12% tax bracket. Mm-hmm. If we need to have more money that goes over that 12% tax bracket, yeah, we could still pull it from our IRAs and other taxable sources. But if we have other places to pull from, does it make more sense to do that? And so this is where every tax strategy is going to be very much crafted towards each individual family unit on that part.
Lance Larson is with us. He's a CPA there at Haven Financial Group. Lance, a lot of people don't know what the situation is when it comes to Social Security and tax. Can you talk about that?
So the easiest way to explain to people is Social Security is taxable based upon how much other taxable income you have. Some of the benefit is 50% of it could be taxable, 85% of it. Yep. I've heard all the same numbers everybody else is hearing. And it comes back down to is that there is a formula that's calculated on it. I try to do in layman's terms saying, if you have no other taxable income, none of your Social Security is taxable. If you have some other taxable income, some of the benefit will be taxable. If you have a lot of other income, then a lot of that benefit is taxable, to the tune of max that will ever be taxable is going to be 85%. So that's one of the reasons we look at that, and we kind of delay, or we might want to delay taking Social Security, because then one, is going to grow, and then two, that gives us more opportunity to use up our taxable sources. So if we have a lot of pre-tax dollars, hey, if we need to start taking those out, well, then those pre-tax dollars is going to cause more of that Social Security benefit to be taxable. If instead we can spend a few years and use up a lot of the pre-tax dollars, do conversions to Roth, whatever we need to do, so that we get to this perfect tax situation in the future years where all you have left is your Social Security and Roth accounts. Well, at that point, as we just said, Social Security is taxable based upon your other taxable income. Well, we know Roth accounts are not taxable, so therefore none of that Social Security benefit is going to be taxable. And then we get that perfect scenario where, hey, I'm collecting all my Social Security, and I'm pulling out a bunch of money out of my Roth account, and I'm not giving a single cent to Uncle Sam.
Mm-hmm. Boy, you've just proven how important it is to sit down with a partner and really strategize about your Social Security and when you draw your Social Security, as opposed to just turning it on when you're eligible. Taxes really one of the real reasons why you want to strategize there, and of course, it continues to build the later you wait. Is a tax strategy to move to a different state?
It absolutely is. So there are states that have no state income tax. The one that I hear the most of course, is Florida. The only thing that I will say to that one is just be careful of the other ways that the states are going to get you. Just because during Thanksgiving time, I was able to go down to Florida. I just found out that there are a whole bunch of toll roads down there. That was a new experience for me. Compared here to Minnesota, I don't pay any tolls for any of the roads that I drive on. So again, you can compare and contrast, but for a lot of the people in Minnesota, if we're filling up that 12% tax bracket, we're looking at somewhere about a $6,000 tax bill that we'd have to pay from our income taxes. Well, if you move down to Florida, you have the same income, you don't have that $6,000 tax bill anymore. Well, they'll get you some other ways. So that, like I just pointed out, that they might have some tolls, but there's other ways to avoid the tolls as well. So that's the kind of the fun things to look at when it comes to taxes.
Kim, if I could add,
Sure.
Obviously, Minnesota is a beautiful, beautiful state. Maybe not right now when everything's white, unless you really like the snow. But at the end of the day, it's a beautiful state. I've lived here my whole life. But we are a very highly taxed state. So listeners, I can completely understand why, because I hear this every single week. Well, we're considering moving to Arizona, Florida, South Carolina, South Dakota, whatever it might be, all those other states. I get it. But the grass isn't always greener on the other side. It can be. There's always other types of taxes applicable in a lot of these states. So sometimes it makes perfect sense to relocate, and other times it doesn't make sense. So, also a takeaway, Lance was given all these specifics, and you know what? It's called forward thinking tax planning, not missing opportunities. But if you have a partner that can point out, qualified charitable distributions for those RMDs, maybe you have a high income donor advised funds in a given year, tax loss harvesting, which our investment teams does to minimize and reduce tax implications. All of this sounds really complicated. And if you're listening, maybe it is for you complicated, but it's what we do to try to simplify and help avoid mistakes or unforced errors, I like to put it, by just not having a conversation, but actually implementing a strategy that can be executed. And Lance, it is tax season. Listeners there, maybe they haven't made their tax appointments. In a nutshell, what is your main focus, and why do people leave your office after they prepare taxes and they seem to be smiling? Could you explain that a little bit for me, please?
Please.
Sure thing, Larry. It's because we spend the off season, or otherwise known as the planning season, figuring all these questions out, that we do develop these plans. We do figure out what it takes to make the tax bill as minimized as possible. And so then when we get to the tax prep season, which is right now, we get to see the results of those plans, and they're coming out right exactly where we want to. We had one guy who was trying to get up to the Irma cliff and not go over. And we went right there. We were short by about $600, which is exactly where we want to be. When we figured out his tax bill, we had his estimated payments. He only had a $1 refund coming back from Minnesota. So it's when you get to make these plans and then you see the fruition of those plans. That's why people get to leave with that smile on their face.
Do they take that $1 and do they frame it and say, here's my $1 that I got back from the state of Minnesota. They owed me.
Well, actually, in this case, they were like, no, let's just let Minnesota have it. So we gave it to the Minnesota Charitable Fund there.
Hey, Lance, this has been really informative. Thanks so much. And to everybody who's listening, have you made your appointment for tax season yet? Or are you getting prepared for, as Lance says, the off season, which is the season of planning? 612-504-8400. That's how you reach the folks at Haven Financial Group. That's how you set up an appointment with Lance. Let me give you the number again. 612-504-8400. Make sure that next year you walk out with a smile on your face. When we come back, we're going to talk about selling your home in retirement. There's a number of things you need to know, and we're going to share those with you next.